we now want to introduce Lynn White and Deb Dachwitz, and they actually work at Pearson Elementary School in the Roots and Shoots program. They are very excited about this program because it actually was begun by Dr. Jane Goodall over 30 years ago. And so they were eager and optimistic to tackle this climate crisis that we have inherited. So they did get to see Jane Goodall in person, and so that was an exciting thing. And this program does help young activists become community leaders today. And over 12,000 young people are actively involved in these projects. That is quite an accomplishment. They both work either in Lynn as a grade 2-3 teacher, and we have Deb who works more with the kindergarten and early childhood education. So they're going to be here right now to tell you about their Roots and Shoots program. They're both going to speak, and then we will ask a couple of questions rather than taking a break. So here we go.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having us here together. I am Deb Dachwitz, and she said I'm an early childhood educator at our elementary school as well. As well as in kindergarten. What is Roots and Shoots? We'll just give you a little bit of background exactly what it is. It was Roots and Shoots is a program developed by over 30 years ago by the wise and wonderful Dr. Jane Goodall. She was meeting with a group of young people in her home in Tanzania that many years ago, and these young people were concerned about problems in their community that they didn't know how to fix. Through discussion and her guidance, they were able to come up with solutions. She embraced their enthusiasm and eagerness to help and created Roots and Shoots. This program is open to young people from preschool to 18 years old. Students come up with a project that supports an issue in their community that connects with the animal world, the people, and the environment. And there are over 12,000 young people across Canada involved in Roots and Shoots, and I believe about 80,000 around the world. So she's really, really connected with a lot of people. And our Pearson Road Elementary is a Roots and Shoots school. I believe we're the only one in Kelowna. So we'd like to change that as well. So how did it come to be that we got to be a Roots and Shoots school? I've been a follower of Jane Goodall for a really long time. I just admire so much of everything that she is. In April of 2017, my son and I were able to be in the audience to see her speak here in Kelowna. She talked about her life in England as a young child, and then her work in Tanzania, and all her work with the chimpanzees. And one part, she really speaks so highly about her mother and how her mother supported her, even though, she was going to go away to Africa in 1962, all by herself and go out in the middle of the jungle to follow her dream. And her mother just was such a strong supporter of her, which I thought that was just incredible at that time. And she also, how she realized that she was going to have to leave Tanzania, which is a place that she loved so much, in order to get more education, in order to continue her work with the chimpanzees. She also talks about many other projects that are going on. We need to take, biggest thing is that we need to take our knowledge and share it and educate others. And she was traveling to many places around the world at that time and is still continuing to travel and share her message that she's getting older and she needs our help. And that's the biggest thing that I took away from that, is she needs us to help her. So I took her message to heart, and I take that message into my classroom. We plant seeds. We talk about, where food comes from, that we can grow our own food. How we take care of the earth through recycling and composting, and just kind of every little message that I can get out there. And then, what year was that? Our principal, well, about 5 or 6 years ago, our principal at the time came up that he wanted to build a a school garden. And so we joined the committee. We had to be a part of that too. And so we are now very actively involved in caring for our garden. It's a big, very extensive project that we've got going on there. But together, we also realized that in order to keep our garden sustainable, we needed funds. We both are always researching and looking for connections of where we can get money to keep our garden going. And I thought of Jane Goodall and her Roots Shoots program. I talked to Lynn and I said, like, we've got this great opportunity to apply, but we need an idea. We needed an idea that was going to connect the animal world to the people and the environment. So let's talk.
And Deb's question came in a very timely, at a great time, because we had spent 2 years building this beautiful garden space. We have 2 greenhouses on it. We have 16 beds. We have a lovely berm with xeriscape indigenous plantings. And our main goal was to make this a sustainable place that our children could learn on. One of the things that I'm really passionate about with my students in grade 2 and 3 is having them connect through land-based learning to the land around us. And we use First People Principles of Learning, which bring in a lot of our local teachings from the Silks Okanagan First Nation. And so our children have become very passionate about the land and what they can do to heal it. And they take to heart when they see garbage and things. And we have a little local wetland that's only a 10-minute walk from our school. And we spend every Wednesday morning there with our children. And one of the things we do there is we take garbage bags and we clean up there every week when we're there, because people from the community are there and there's garbage and litter. And they get very upset when they see it in the pond or they see it on the sides of the path. So when Deb came to me and said, what kind of project do you think we could do with this Roots and Shoots grant money, we had just had a conversation with our community, because part of our garden plan was to have compost bins on site. And Kelowna it's beautiful, but we have a very big rat issue in Kelowna. And so our neighbors were very concerned about us having compost on site and didn't want us to have that. And the kids were sad because they knew that was a huge part of us making our garden a sustainable place. And as a school, we create a lot of garbage and food waste. So they had already had a plan in place to collect it. We were going to have compost bins in each classroom. We were going to have our composters in the garden, and we were told we couldn't do that. So we had to come up with a different solution. So Deb and I put our heads together, and I had just taken part in a greening workshop where I learned about red wiggler worms. And so came, mine at home is much bigger than this, and that's actually, we made it out of Rubbermaid coats, and I thought, this is so cool, I'm gonna build these with my kids. But the problem in every classroom, especially when you've been teaching like I have for 24 years, is I have a lot of stuff and not a lot of space. So my big composter was too big for my classroom. And but my kids were so excited about worms. In the spring, as it's getting wet, I have critter tanks in my room. One of the reasons I don't have a lot of space is that I create space in my room for kids to bring critters inside so they can study them and research what they are and watch how they procreate. And so my kids in spring always bring in worms. And so we had a worm farm going in my room that year. But we were realizing that wasn't the same thing as our little red wiggler worms. So Deb and I researched something that would be easy to have in a classroom on a counter that wouldn't take up much space, that was not hard to maintain. And the nice thing about red wiggler worms is that they eat their weight in food every day. So in a classroom, there's half a pound of worms in this bin. So these worms will eat half a pound of food waste each day. And so the kids, again, the problem, we're going to get red wigglers. How do we take care of them? What do we need to do? And so the kids researched what they needed to do to take care of red wiggler worms and make sure that they were going to be sustainable. And they also they procreate very quickly. You get a lot of, so then one bin went to 2 bins, went to 3 bins, went to 6 bins. Then I had to convince my colleagues to have red wiggler worms in their classrooms, and not everybody is a lover of critters like I am. So we had to get the kids to educate the teachers. We had to get the kids to educate the other students in the classroom. So the kids learned about what they needed to do and they sold the idea. And so we decided to compromise, and we weren't gonna have a bin in every classroom, but we in our school are set up, we have pods. So there are 3 classrooms and there's a pod with a central counter, and so we could have 1 bin in a pod, and 3 classrooms could be providing the waste for those. And they don't eat everything. So, you know, there's certain things, you can't put bread, you can't put meat. It has to be green and also mixed with brown waste as well, meaning brown paper, nothing with any kind of bleaching or anything like that on it. So I also brought in my old blender so the kids can come and they can blend the food to make it easier for the worms to eat. So the blender is going with paper and the food waste and water. And we also get a lot of waste in our school. So it's too much sometimes for the bins because we've learned along the way you can overfeed them and they die. You can make them too moist and they die. And when they die, they smell bad. And so, again, not a selling feature to my colleagues who don't like critters in the classroom. So the nice thing about a red wiggler bin is that if you take care of it, it does not have a smell. It smells just organic. It smells like dirt. And what you get from it, the castings are beautiful for our garden. And so we have had a lot of learning along the way, ups and downs, the loss of worms, teachers saying, no, I'm out, I'm not doing this anymore. So I took home 4 worm bins last summer, and my husband said, why are you bringing all of these worms home? Along with my snails and my other critters that you have to win over summer, right? So I get a spot in the basement for all of my things, and everybody's happy. And we in our house don't create enough waste for all of those bins at home. So again, over the summer, sometimes we lose some, but again, that's a learning process for the students. So I think my message is that it's our children that are going forward and have to do the work. They have a lot of work ahead of them because boy, if we mess things up. So we're trying to create students that look like Alessia right here. Alessia says, I am amazing. She is 5. She loves worms. She loves being a steward to the land. She loves getting out on the land and getting her hands dirty. She loves being in the garden. She loves planting seeds. She loves when we do the honorable harvest in the fall. We have our garden and we harvest and we cook with what we grow, and the kids we have it lined up on the fence and they take produce home with them, because in our garden we grow zucchinis and we grow cantaloupe, watermelon, carrots, beets, kale, spinach, lettuce, beans, peas, garlic, lots of squashes, pumpkins. And so at Halloween, the kids all get pumpkins out of our garden that we've grown from seeds. And so we want the children to understand that they are the future and they need to know how to advocate, how to work hard, and come up with ideas when other people around them tell them, no, we don't want that, or no, you can't do that. And they need to figure out a way around those no's, because we need to be saying yes to the kids. The voices of the children are the most important thing, because they will notice the things that are wrong and they will want to come up with ideas on how to fix it.
Wow, we have been educated today. You also do ladybugs, I heard too, and a bunch of ladybugs together is called a loveliness of ladybugs. Did you know that? A loveliness of ladybugs. So I'm looking at beautiful people out there, and I would like to just ask one question, maybe take a minute to our lovely last 2 speakers, and that is, what is the one thing that you have learned that has had the most impact from the children that you teach? What is the one thing?
I think probably the biggest thing that I've taken away from the kids is that when they actually participate, and get their hands in the dirt, But we can talk and we can tell them all we want, but they need to get their hands dirty and doing the work.
And I think one of the things my kids know, if they come up with a question, I don't have all the answers, and I say, I don't know, but how can we find out? And so we are learning alongside each other. I'm not standing at the front of my classroom telling them information, we are learning alongside. And we're in a world where Google, you know, kids just can go and Google things if they want to know answers, but I think kids learn more when they experience. They experience things and actually learn through their experiences. So what we're really passionate about is getting children outside and getting out on the land and having them have those connections, and also bringing their parents alongside us too. So last week we spent a week at Mission Creek. We called it Mission Creek Week, and we were able to get some grant money to take our kids out on the land every day for 5 days, and we had different experiences for them throughout the week. But we really were, it was lovely that parents came alongside us because they're seeing how their children are learning. So learning isn't sitting in a chair in a classroom. Our motto for the week last week was not all classrooms have 4 walls. And so I think that is what we're going forward with. And so, yeah, we hatched our Roots and Shoots project this year because we didn't need any more worm bins because we have enough of those in our school right now. But we had to come up with a different idea. So we were really thinking, what else can we do for our gardens? So this year we've ordered uthecas, which are the, it's for praying mantis. They're the egg sacs for praying mantis. So actually just before I left to come here today, I now have about 300 praying mantis nymphs in the enclosure in my classroom, and I had to feed them the wingless fruit flies that are the food source for the praying mantis before I forgot to put the lid back on the container, and then had the fruit flies on my teacher table, was scooping them up into and then ladybugs are next, so those just arrived today as well. And then we're also to put into our garden as natural pest control because we don't use any sprays or pesticides or anything in our garden. And then we also have butterflies that we're doing, and mason bees as well. So my husband is a builder of all things for our garden. So when I go to him and I say, honey, I need a mason bee house / bug hotel that we can like cement into posts in the garden, and he's like, just show me a picture.
Hi, okay, so this one was directed at Janet. Anybody can answer in terms of, you mentioned about the traditional on-land education in terms of the challenges of climate change. So how can we build capacity in our communities as non-scientists normal?
One of the purposes of land-based learning with children is that we want them to be advocates for their spaces, right? So when we go to our local wetland in Kelowna, there used to be a lot more of them, and because of all the development that's happening here, they're getting destroyed. And so we want the children to grow up being advocates for those spaces in our community, because we're losing the wildlife, we're losing all. The one by our school used to have multiple different varieties of ducks that would be there and different kinds of animals there that would be around, and it's going away because they're building all around it. So the children, we want them to love those places and have memories of things they've done in those spaces so that they can be advocates for it.
And my biggest thing is just getting kids outside. They need to be outside in all kinds of weather. They need to play in the rain, they need to play in the sunshine, and they need to get into nature where they can actually see the trees and touch the trees and be on the ground and, you know, in all the seasons, and just connecting, being outside. And that to me is how they, you know, they learn to appreciate and what nature is just by being in it. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. I was just telling Lynn this. We have in our school garden, for instance, the program I teach is a drop-in preschool program where parents have to attend with their children. And we went out to the garden and earlier in the spring, we planted potatoes that we will harvest in June. And so it's been a process from start to finish, but one of the parents didn't know that potatoes grow underground. They truly don't, because people come from all different kinds of places. And when we go to the grocery store, the potatoes are in a nice bag, all clean and ready to go. So we don't teach them where those potatoes came from. So that's part of our mandate is with our garden, is that we want them to see right from the seed to the harvest. And then, as Lynn was talking about is, we harvest the seeds also that when we grow, we harvest the seeds, and now we're into 3 or 4 years of using seeds that we've also produced.
One of our kids last fall said, oh my gosh, we're eating the grandchild of our original watermelon.
Somehow they get it somehow.
And it's also good to know that chocolate does not come from chocolate bars that you buy at the grocery store. And forest bathing, like you were speaking, Jana, about that's just a natural part of just going out into the forest and bathing. It's way better than taking antidepressants, people have found, unless medically it's been indicated where you do that, but walk in the forest will have the same effect. The terpenes that come off the aerosols they calm the body completely, so.
Yes, my very quick question is, well, first of all, I have to give a pre-statement in that I heard an horrendous statistic recently that in 2050, I won't be here, but in 2050, the rural population will only be 10%. So my question is, how are we going to steward the land if 90% of us live in the city?
I think something we noticed last week with the children is that many of our children live in apartments close to our school. They're newcomer families from all over the world. And they don't have a lot of opportunity to play in forests. So exposing them to things in our community like Mission Creek Park that has all of the trails. What we noticed at the beginning of the week, on Monday, we had our lunch break, and there's a playground at Mission Creek that all the kids love to go and play on. And so the first day, all the children were on the play structure. On the second day, we looked around and we're like, where are all the kids? And we were sitting and they were all along the edge of the creek, and they were making bases, and they were finding sticks, and they were building a fort, and can we take our shoes off and put our feet in the water? Yes, do that for sure. And so through the week, by Friday, none of the kids were on the play structure. They were all in the forest. They had 2 bases they created. Then we went back yesterday and their base had been taken apart by these older kids, and they almost got into a fight over the sticks because those are our sticks. And we're like, well, they don't belong to you. They're the forest. They're Mother Earth's sticks, not yours. But they didn't have any desire to play on the play structure at all yesterday. So I think that when you're asking that question, I think people having those experiences, and they'll want to go back to the land always, because they're going to remember those good things they did there.
Gratitude and gratefulness to our team today of exceptional climate change experts doing things that are making a difference. And the call to you is go home to your club and find a way to do something around bringing our young people in around climate change. And the sacred scientist, Diana Beresford Kroger, when asked the question, what's the one thing I can do? She said, we all need to hold hands together and say a blessing for this world. So if you do that and then do something in your club, it will make a huge difference.